Mental Health Monday
on Radio City Talk
with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Radio City Talk.
And it's Mental Health Monday for another week. It's a Monday, so it's time to sit down and talk about mental health. Bit of a heavy heart in regard to this one, because an organisation who've been on the programme many times before, and it could well be the last time that we, won't invite them on the show, because the people involved in it will still, I'm sure, go on to do some incredible work. But the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium, as of very soon, will be no more. And Claire Stevens joins us in the studio. Claire, thank you for your time. It's great to see you.
Thanks very much.
It's a real shame because we've spoken before about funding. We've spoken many times about getting the right people on board in supporting organisations. We've talked about the expertise contained within the consortium. But financially, despite all the hard work, you've not been able to get yourselves over the line, if you like. Can you just set up for us about how difficult things have been in the last year or so?
Yeah, it's been a real struggle, and it's not just us. Obviously, everyone is struggling at the moment, and particularly the third sector, the voluntary community sector, is having a hard time of it. It's a shame because mental health is on everybody's lips all the time. It's never had a higher profile, and the government and local government and NHS all say how much it's an important issue and that money's going into it, and yet that money isn't getting down to the grassroots, it isn't getting down to the people who experience mental distress. It's being channeled into traditional things, which are obviously very much needed, like counselling, therapies, talking therapies, support, and crisis care. But what it's not coming down to is that the organisations like us, which are doing work which is led by the people for the people, if you like, and which is about preventative stuff so that people never reach the crisis in the first place.
You've been going for the best part of a quarter of a century.
Yep.
Tell us then, what does that look like then? Tell us about the work that you've done in that time, those 25 years nearly that we've been talking about the work of the Mental Health Consortium. That gives us an example of the value that can be placed within that kind of investment. Okay,
so many things have happened over the last 25 years, obviously, and I think we like to think that we've been a part of the conversation that has made it easier for people to talk about mental health. We were set up by a group of people who used mental health services locally because they didn't feel that their voices were being heard, and we've always championed the voices of people who've got actual lived experience because we believe that they are the experts and that they can tell a thing or two to the people with the power to provide services for them. And I think we've been a really effective sort of conduit for that, if you like, that we've brought together the people who use the services with the people who provide them and the people who commission them. And we've had an impact on local commissioning strategy over that time. We've also been a voice for equality and diversity within the sector, and for making sure that services were tailored as much as possible to the people who need them, and not just a one-size-fits-all kind of approach, which is more and more what you're getting now as cuts start to bite. We've also done a lot of creative work and arts-based things like the stuff that we've been doing for Liverpool Mental Health Festival over the last few years, and we know that we've, over the last 5 years or so through the festival, we've had contact with over 35,000 people. So it's not that we're insignificant, I think. We have always wanted, as I say, really to let people's voices speak for themselves.
How frustrating is it that you've done all this great work at a time where people didn't talk about mental health, or the mental health story was one which was always hidden, unspoken, and now we're kind of breaking into this new light? Now is the point at which the work that you've been doing becomes financially unsustainable, at a point where actually you could arguably say you built the foundations to get here. That must be incredibly, incredibly frustrating.
It's more frustrating than I can reasonably say on air, I think. It's hit us all really hard because we feel that we're exactly what should be funded at the moment. It's not just a case of, we would say that, wouldn't we? Obviously we want to hold on to our organisation and so on. But it's not about that. It's about giving the opportunity for people to get involved, have a say, talk openly about what they're experiencing, and influences what services remain. So that's really important. We stand up for people who use shelters for people who've experienced domestic abuse. Rather, we stand up for LGBT and BAME communities. We stand up for young people and older people and women who are not accessing services, and we stand up for people who can't afford to go to a private counselling service, for instance.
So I was going to ask you about that, and we're going to meet some of the team as well you work with as part of the consortium. As of the 30th of April, then, you wrap up as an organisation. On the 1st of May, what's the impact for that?
Well, some people won't see any impact at all. Obviously, it's not. We don't provide things like a counselling service, so it's not like counselling places will be lost. I think what will be lost is the voice of service users, because we've been able to gather sort of collective voices in that way. It'll be a strategic influence because we're no longer feeding in what people say to the people who make decisions, and so how will those decisions be informed? The things will be lost, like the courses and events that we run. So, if we run creative writing courses or photography opportunities for people, or drumming workshops or things like that, and the mental health festival, all of which we do for free for people, those things will be gone. And the opportunity to provide sort of peer support so that people can get together, talk to each other, which often they say is the most effective form of staying well mentally, is to have that sort of social opportunity.
Huge reaction to this on social media. I'll just pick out some of the things that have been said. Paul says, "This is awful news. So sorry to hear that it's come down to this. The entire commissioning system needs to rethink how we commission services and measure outcomes. There is value in services that is measurable in ways that are hard to quantify. Such a loss to the city." Many people reacting to this one on social media. We'll read through some of those as well. Let's bring Andy Kerr into the conversation. Andy, thank you for your time as well. Andy, it strikes me that at a time when the work of the consortium, the connectivity between the consortium, the service user, and the way that the mental health system is kind of built, that it's not just some one-size-fits-all policy. It seemed like you guys had a really strong voice in all of that, and actually that voice would have a value now as different services come on board, different volunteer groups are set up as well. The fact you've already got those conversations taking place, you'd be really crucial sort of people to be in and around the system at the moment.
You would think, wouldn't you? I was the first worker for the consortium back in the day, whenever that was 24 years ago, and really we were pushing at open doors then. The commissioners and service leads and people in statutory settings were equally vocal as people using services for the need for that kind of network to exist and for people to participate on equal terms. And then we kind of had the full rush of a change of government in 1997, and so participation and service users' involvement was written all over government policy. So organisations had to show how they were involving people, and the consortium had a ready-made solution to those problems. So it was a lot easier for me back in those days than I think the kind of tide of policy at a national level has shifted in the course of time, where and your listeners will have their own views about whether or not the voices of ordinary people matter to the people who are currently in charge of the country. But I have to say, from the point of view of the consortium, it's not as straightforward that ordinary people's and people who have mental health problems views especially would be taken into account, let alone being able to spend public money on making sure that happens.
Is there a sense then that voice isn't required anymore, or is it that geographically the voice exists in Liverpool but maybe it doesn't exist somewhere else, so why would we listen to people in Liverpool and not in maybe other major cities?
Yeah, there's always a danger, isn't it, that we can't see because we're too involved, that, you're just no longer all the rage, and, that's a passage of time. I would argue that the amplifying those voices has never been more important. And I think that, there'll be a big hole left when the consortium goes, that people currently aren't anticipating what the impact of that will be, and in the words of Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
But you must have thought, Andy, when you heard about, and even Theresa May, when she made her sort of pledges as the new Conservative leader going into the general election as well, she was putting mental health front and centre. She was talking about mental health services. The health secretary was talking about new mental health jobs coming on, new money going into the mental health. You must have been thinking, oh, great, this is the next stage, if you like, of the evolution.
Well, and you would hope so. But keen observers would have to keep their eye on how much of that money is new money and whether that's an increase in expenditure at all. But also you have to keep your eye on the numbers of people who need to access mental health services going up and up and up in respect of that money, and whether the additional expenditure meets the increase in demand. So then, if you're a local funder in the local authority or in the health service, then you're faced with really odious choices to make. Also, the government policy tells you where that extra money has to go. So they'll say that this has to go. There has to be this. We have to chase these targets, or there needs to be this increase in people accessing such and such a service. So the room for lateral thinking, I think, for local leads is much narrower than it was back when I was there setting the consortium up, and they could say, oh, well, here's a couple of thousand to do such and such a thing and get on with it.
I was going to say the accountability of finance is absolutely crucial for anyone who works in business or government, local government, health or whatever. For you, what's the danger then from losing something like the consortium in regard to making sure that money is spent correctly in the right way? Does it become sort of like a less effective spend because you've not got that level of engagement that you previously had?
It's my view that there's always a wide range of opinions on how that money would be best spent across the system, and that having a discussion amongst those points of view makes sure that there's some consensus that it's going to do the best job. And I think the removal of the consortium means that conversation is less likely to take place, that people more removed from the coalface are making decisions according to policy that they're required to do without that being tempered, I suppose, and locally tailor-made to fit the people's needs in Liverpool. And also that, therefore, the smaller voices, the more innovative projects, the things that are out in left field, and in particular the things that the consortiums really espoused, which are minority rights and the inclusion of people who practice arts and creativity as a means to improve your mental health, have a much smaller voice in the competition for resources.
Andy Kerr's with us alongside Claire Stevens from the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium. Let's bring Pete into the conversation too. Pete Ryan, thank you for your time, Pete. Andy was in the door first. 1995, he was there. When did you first step through the doors, if you like?
2014, so 5 years.
So 2014 is pretty much the start, if you like, of the new wave of discussion around mental health. I think even in 2014, you'd have never predicted that heading into the 25th anniversary year that it would be time to shut up shop from the Mental Health Consortium's point of view.
No, it wouldn't, because 2 years ago we celebrated the 21st anniversary, and we had a big event at FACT, and we thought maybe we knew funding was going to be a problem, but we thought the consortium, for all the work that it does, that it would get that funding, because it's essential to have the consortium in this city. But the future without it looks really miserable, and it won't provide the services or the organisation for people like myself. I'm a carer and a service user of the PSS organisation, and I've been involved with these for 5 years, organising events around Mad Pride and the World Mental Health Day Festival. And to lose those two major events in this city is a tragedy. And it seems like the system or the powers that be are abusing mental health service users, because they're saying that, as you said, there's more money coming into the system, but on the ground, you don't see it at all. There's cuts after cuts, organisations closing all the time.
Do you think that those sort of grassroots organisations, when they were set up, that kind of changed and were flexible with the way that they did things, and the organisations that they work with as well, and the way they came up with new ideas and creative ideas, that's almost been lost a little bit now as we sort of get into these sort of maybe more austere times where everything's got to be absolutely accountable, and you've got to talk about the number of people through the door and the number of different faces that you've come across, and you can't talk about positivity gained through a festival event, maybe positivity gained through an arts event. You can't correlate that, and you can't put that down on an Excel spreadsheet in the way you can do crisis interventions, for instance.
Yeah, it's all like target orientated because, as you say, those events don't have the numbers that we get at those events are huge, and people, come up to us and say, they've never heard of the Mental Health Consortium, although we do a lot of publicity, but they love to be involved. Like the Mad Pride event, especially, lots of people come to that event at District last year, and put lots of slogans up on the walls, the whiteboards that we had about mental health and all these events like that. And we do that at the Mental Health Festival. And there's always grassroots and organisations who are involved, and we have information stands and everything. And we have lots of people coming in. The last one was in the Blue Coat, and the day was extraordinary because we had lots of people coming through there, and people getting lots of information of how they can deal with their own mental distress and how they can care for somebody in the same way. And I can't understand how, as I say, the powers that be cannot fund us, because it's only $125,000 a year for an organisation that does lots of these events throughout the year. Like we were involved in 6 festivals last year, bringing lots of people into the Headspace Hangar at African Oye and the Liverpool Pride Festival. So, I just wish that anybody out there who's got 125 grand to give us would just put their hands in the pockets, whoever they are.
What does the 1st of May mean to you? Have you thought about what you're going to do? Like when you want to have the conversations that you're having, of course the people will still exist, but then it won't fall under the same umbrella sort of organisation. What will you do on the 1st of May, do you think?
Well, because I belong to I'm a peer support worker at the PSS, so I do have that to fall back on. That was my first sort of basin before I got involved at the consortium. So probably I'll still attend their services, but the future without the consortium, I just can't fathom it. I just can't think that it never will be there, and it's hard to understand. Again, for people not giving us the funding, I just can't stress that enough, that if we'd have got just the funding for another 3 years to carry on the great work and that Claire and Sarah do, it's just a tragedy, really.
We've got Pete Ryan sharing his story alongside Andy Kerr and Claire Stevens from the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium, who are up and running until April the 30th. You've kind of made your official announcement, Claire, that you are closing down. If somebody does come up with cash today, tomorrow, next week, is there still a chance?
If they can come up with the cash in the next few days, then we'd love to hear from them, obviously. To comply with sort of legal requirements, our trustees have to cease operating if they can't afford to continue operating, obviously. So we do have to make the staff redundant and close everything down if the money doesn't come in.
Team from the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium on the programme today: Claire Stevens, Andy Kerr, Pete Ryan, who have sadly revealed that unless some funding appears in the next couple of days, the organisation as we know it will no longer exist as of April the 30th. We've been hearing about the work that they've been doing in the past near quarter of a century, and guys, on social media there's a lot of love for the work that you've done. Steve says, good luck guys, so sad to see the demise of a community mental health organisation that was so cost effective, while ineffective frontline services hoover up cash. New mental health strategy, but only if they are run by statutory services. I imagine there's a little bit of politics that are thrown into some of the responses here, which we maybe don't have time to get into too much. Elsa says, good luck, you've worked so hard and been such a shining beacon of hope. Am I wrong in believing in an 11th hour of intervention and a stay of execution for you? #mad, I'm furious. which I like that. The team at Mary Seacole House said, so sorry to hear that our friends at Liverpool Mental Health Consortium are having to close. They took out time to attend our event last week, and we just wanted to say a huge thank you for all the invaluable support you've offered over the years. There's a great deal of great goodwill to the organisation, which is incredible to see as well, and such a shame that after April the 30th it won't be possible anymore to deliver those services. Claire, I presume people keep commenting and going, all right, so are we doing this again this year? And are you doing this again? Can we work with you again on this? And you're having to turn them down. You're having to say no.
Yeah, exactly that. People are ringing us and emailing us every day saying, we're ready to talk about what we can do for the festival this year, or here's a project we'd like to partner up with you on. Can we talk to you about this idea we've had, etc., etc. Literally every day people are doing that, and we are having to say, unfortunately, we can't.
So in terms of those organisations that you work with, you were kind of working alongside different festivals as well, the Liverpool Mental Health Festival as well. So is that not happening? That just doesn't happen? It
won't happen. Well, we certainly won't be doing it anyway, unfortunately, yeah.
And in terms of your own sort of expertise as well, because you've all got incredible insight, that a quarter of a century worth of work through the consortium does as well. But you'd be looking for opportunities as well, in a time where it feels like those opportunities should be there. But it seems like a shame to leave the consortium brand, if you like, behind when it's built that reputation, that it's got those connections, that it's got those people coming to you specifically to ask for help. And if suddenly that's lost and websites get shut down and email addresses change, suddenly you've got a breakdown in those communications.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of the real tragedies of this situation. It's almost like if the consortium didn't exist, someone might think to invent it. However, it's already there. We already have a reputation which is really solid, and we have really good friendships and partnerships with organisations. You mentioned Mary Seacole House there, but we've done a lot of legwork over the last couple of decades to build those relationships with communities, with service providers, with the people out there who use services. And I think we have a really strong reputation for being a critical friend of the system, if you like, and an honest broker between service users and service providers and commissioners.
Andy, in terms of sort of Liverpool having a mental health consortium as well, what sort of things are you hearing from around the country, if you like? Are there similar organisations who are having similar problems? Are you the last guy standing, if you like, in regard to this? What sort of things do you hear?
Oh, I think we've probably done well in terms of the national picture to last this long, taking the emotion out of it. I understand from Peter Beresford, who's a leading campaigner for the rights of people with mental health problems, has noted that that the number of service user-led organisations has plummeted over the past 10 years. So I think, unfortunately, this is part of a national trend where the support and structures and funding for ordinary people, disabled people and people with mental health problems in particular, to challenge the systems that they found oppressive in the past is kind of trickling out.
And is there a sense then that how do I phrase this, that it's been deemed that voice isn't important, that it's been deemed that that's an unnecessary middle step, that there are other people who already know what people need without having to have those conversations, or that they've found a different way of communicating, maybe, if you become an inconvenience to the system, if you like?
I don't know. There's probably not a person, is there, that said, oh, well, let's not fund that anymore. It's about, I think, around what the culture of the day is, and who the people in society matter and how they're defined by the people who are leading our social institutions and setting social policy. So I think, no, there's probably not a policy decision somewhere that says let's not do this anymore, but there's another set of policy decisions that make it look decreasingly likely that you're going to be able to invest public services in organisations that criticise the status quo.
Pete, what does it mean to you to lose that voice, if you like, or to lose the option of the voice through the consortium? What are the dangers, if you like, of losing the consortium's voice? Is there a chance that services start being delivered in a way which aren't that effective, and service users don't have a space or a voice to be able to share that, or to maybe hit back with suggestions, criticisms, whatever it might be, constructive or otherwise.
Yeah, I think the consortium, for myself, like, it's given me the voice because I'm a carer and I care for someone who has a severe mental impairment. When I'm speaking with psychiatrists or people from statutory bodies, I can explain, because I understand a lot more about mental health. I can put across to them what it feels like for the person I'm caring for and for myself, and I always get like a very good response that way. But to lose the backup of the consortium that backs up or reaches people who are isolated from that, who don't have that access, is appalling, really, because that's what we strive to do with the consortium. We try to reach people who are isolated, or groups that are not like in the service or connected with other services. So
what might that look like then? What sort of, as of May, what sort of issues do you think might occur where people might have issues but don't have a voice or don't have a connection to an organisation like this that they can share those concerns with?
Some people suffering with mental distress are sort of given access to like talking therapies, which they suit some people but not a lot of people. If people are unwell, they need to access as many services as possible and find the one that suits them, because that's what happens a lot. That happened to me, because when I accessed talking therapies, it wasn't for me, and then I got referred to the PSS, and I found that they were the best, like, to support me, and in turn they referred me to the consortium to find that space with the voice, and to question and influence policy in the city and how mental health services are run.
Claire, I guess as well, Pete's example there of the work that you do, when you're not there, there'll be people who will have been thinking, the consortium have got my back, or if I have this voice or share this voice, it'll be listened to because I've got the weight of the organisation behind me as well. Are there no such similar organisations through which that works now? Are those people finding themselves on their own? Are, authorities setting up, schemes through which those communications can be made directly, maybe?
I'm not aware of anyone that's doing anything similar to that. People can contact, say, Healthwatch Liverpool, if they've got issues or concerns about mental health services, because they're the local watchdog for that sort of thing. It's not quite the same as what we do. Otherwise, it's very difficult to know where people would go. And similarly, I think we've acted as a kind of, not just somewhere that brings together a collective voice for people who use services or maybe choose not to use services because they've had a difficult time with services, but also for organisations in the sector who are working with people in the community. We have provided a voice for them and a forum for them to come and raise their concerns about how things are going, and we've been stronger together because of that. So we've almost been like a shop steward for the mental health sector, and that will go.
Claire, I think this is your fourth or fifth appearance on Mental Health Monday. I think you've been on it more than anyone else. You're one of our first ever guests as well, and it seems an absolute crying shame that under the Mental Health Consortium banner we won't be having these conversations again. I'm going to give you the last word on the programme today, but first let's go to Andy. Any thoughts that you want to put out there? This might be the last time we hear from the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium, unless a funding, a bit of bidding comes through, or somebody stumps up that cash that we were talking about before. What would you like to say?
Well, for me, I think I would just like to remind everybody that the Mental Health Consortium was born out of a social movement to challenge social injustice and discrimination that were faced by people who experience mental distress, and part of a movement that has worked wonders to increase the rights of those people, both on the statute book in terms of the updates to the Mental Health Act, and their role in deciding their own futures and defining their own issues, and not being labelled as nutcases and thrown into asylums. That's where the consortium comes from. It's not just a mechanism for shoehorning members of the public into consultation exercises. It's an instrument to redress social injustice. And I guess it pains me a lot, as you can imagine, having set it up and stayed with it as a trustee now for a long time, to see the consortium's demise. But what I hope is that those people, if those injustices continue, that they'll regroup and keep fighting and find another banner and change the world.
Andy, thank you for your time on that one. Pete, any final thoughts?
I'd like to say, anybody out there, again, you can save the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium by whatever means. Please get in touch with us, because it's essential for this service to carry on for the sake of the people of the city and for mental health in general.
Claire Stevens, you get the final word, of course.
Thank you. Well, I as I've said before, I think it's a tragedy. I'm really sad, but I'm also really glad that we have been here for the years we have been here, and we've been raising the voices of people who experience mental distress on a daily basis. We've been holding people to account. We've been making suggestions, constructive suggestions about how services could be improved, and some of those have been listened to and implemented. And I just really want to thank everybody who's been involved with the consortium over the last 24 years, Andy and Pete and my colleague Sarah, who's amazing, all of our service users who've worked with us over the years, all of our partners and friends who've contributed to the success of the consortium, because we've punched above our weight because it's a consortium and because we bring everybody in with us. Thanks to you for highlighting us as well, and for all the work you do. And just to echo what Andy and Pete have said, that, you know, we will still be there somewhere and voices will still try to find a way to be heard. So the spirit will live on.
Claire, thank you for your time. Andy and Pete as well. The Mental Health Consortium, the Liverpool Mental Health Consortium on Mental Health Monday. If you want to get involved through the work that they're doing, or if you want to have your say, drop me an email, mick@radiocity.co.uk, particularly if it's a financial investment as well, and I'll point you the direction of the team as well. That's mick@radiocity.co.uk. It's Mental Health Monday from Radio City Talk.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
On Radio City Talk.